and welcome to Celtic State of Mind. My name is Laura Bradburn and I am joined by Tony Haggerty and Jim Orr in what some people might call a return to the original and best Friday lineup. Others might disagree. I'm not sure.
Deluded people, yes.
Jim, how you doing? It's been a while since we've been on together.
Yes, Laura, I'm fine, apart from this persistent cold I seem to have. But yeah, good.
Yeah. How you doing, Tony?
Yeah, very well, Laura. Yeah, good to see you, Jim.
Hi, Tony.
Before
I'm a big fan of yours, Tony. Yeah. Hi.
I know, still
brilliant. Loved it.
The feeling's very mutual.
Still get starstruck being on with you two. That's
the
for
Tony
sure.
Haggerty way. That's what it's called.
Anyway, let's stop this loving and get back to normal. Just want to take a quick minute at the beginning of the show. I know people come on here to talk about other things, to distract themselves from the things going on in the world, but I just wanted to say thanks to Paul John for giving me the opportunity. You might see in the corner of my screen, I'll not try and point to it because it's like, I don't know what direction it is, but down here there's a wee badge for United Help Ukraine. It's one of the local charities in Ukraine. There are plenty out there if you give it a wee Google. If you've got anything spare to give, obviously there's lots of funding and help going to Ukraine to help with the humanitarian aid and medical aid out there for the atrocious situation that's going on there. I think it speaks to our values as Celtic supporters to help those in need, and certainly those are a group of people in need. Even if you're not in the fortunate position to be able to donate, then obviously sharing those links with people who are and raising awareness of the plight of those people, although it's pretty unavoidable at the moment, is something that's definitely something that's worth doing. But we will get back to the much more I want to say pleasant sort of pastime of talking about Celtic. I'm not sure how pleasant it's been for the last few weeks. I've not been on the Friday show, Tony, for a few weeks, and there's been ups and downs in that time period. We'll start with probably one of the ups was the result against St Mirren the other night. What was for anybody who's not seen you earlier in the week or anything like that, what was your thoughts on the performance against St Mirren the other night?
I agreed with Ange when he was asked, was it a hard watch? I thought Celtic were firmly in control. I never ever thought they were going to lose a goal. It became kind of fraught because the fans were getting anxious about when they were going to score. I always thought it was a question of just when they were going to score. Cracking goal from Cameron Carter-Vickers too. And I also thought our four defenders were the best players on the park the other night because they freed them a Parkhead to wander with the ball because St Mirren never came to play. That's how it gets so fraught, and that negative energy sometimes from the fans when it goes to 55 minutes they've not scored. But, I think that was a game where they trusted the process and they got the rewards. I thought there was against Hibs, and I even asked the manager, was there a spark missing? I just think these games are going to be like that because nobody wants to play Celtic for what might happen if they come out and play them at a game of football. So they're just camping in, they're sitting in. Celtic found a way to beat that the other night against St Mirren, and once they scored the first goal, they could have scored 2 or 3 more. Were pretty dominant after that. Didn't get it against Hibs, so that's the thing. Now we move on to Livingston. We'll talk about that. But yeah, I thought they were fairly comfortable. If you're going to win leagues, you're going to have to win these type of games, and the next 8 are going to be these type of games. So, the challenge is there. They've manoeuvred themselves into a brilliant position. So I was kind of with the manager on that. I thought they controlled the game and dominated the football, as you said. And yeah, it's no rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring, but they're winning, and that's the most important thing.
Absolutely, that's what it all comes down to. Jim, I'll get your thoughts specifically on the St Mirren game in a little bit, but you were talking about an interesting point, and few know the history of 97-98 better than you after your research for Bend It Like Blackback. Shameless plug.
Yeah, good.
But you were talking about before we came on air how this has sort of reflections of that season, the up and down nature of it, the fact that we weren't, expected to be in a title race this season based on how we went last season. What's your thoughts been on the last couple of weeks, obviously, with the ups and downs of some of the results?
I think it's dead exciting, and I think we should all be excited. We haven't had a league race for a decade, something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's dead exciting, and I think we have to back the team. I mean, the thing I've found, in the last few home games, the fans are turning on them really quickly. And the players don't need that. The players need support. Players need encouragement. A lot of these are young guys, never been in this situation before. And I was at the Bodo game a few weeks ago, and I mentioned that. And John Paul Mason mentioned the same thing. A lot of fans getting on their back. You know, we need to, it doesn't help them. They're young guys. Get behind them. I think I'm on every fortnight now. So the last fortnight I was on, I think it was just after the Bodo first game. We're a point ahead. No, 3 points ahead. We managed to go over Easter Road, which traditionally is a pretty difficult venue to go to. I think Europe is a factor. I mean, I'd never want Celtic to lose a game of football. I'd rather they played not their first team players in European games, but I'd like them to get through. I think it does have an effect. I think, you know, we've seen in the last 2 weeks, they played Dortmund, and in the game after that, they've dropped points in both the games. We played Bodo, and if it wasn't for the late goal by the big chap, we'd have dropped points in both games. So I think that's a factor. So it's always a double-edged sword. The fact they're still in Europe could be to our advantage. So the Dundee game, you know, played well. Big chap was brilliant. Kept on going. Bit concerning at the goals that we lost. After that, Bodo, forget the second game. Who was last week? Hibs. Aye, as Tony said, it's lack of tempo, lack of movement, lack of everything, but totally in control. Never looked like losing. You know, that's not been a happy hunting ground. Went there, completely bossed them, but just didn't make the chances. The other night, I agree totally with Tony. Always in control. St Mirren came there not to play, and it's a matter of just trying to wear them down. But you know, half time, there's guys around me shouting abuse at the team. You're thinking, I was thinking, shut up. I didn't actually tell them to shut up. You're thinking, just, you know, we need to calm down and get behind the team. And yeah, it's got shades of 97, 98. It's also got shades, I think, of Neil Lennon's first season, where he came in. I don't think we're expected to win the league. They were spending money like no one's business. That's a different story. Maybe come to that sometime. Biggest scandal ever. Anyways, he came in, bought a few young, exciting players, put a really good team together, and with only a few games to go, we were top of the league. And then we blew it up at Inverness and unfortunately lost it. And that was a league season that you thought, we don't expect to win, but we've almost did it. And I kind of feel that with this one, that, you know, after the last Livingston game, which is what, 6 months ago now, lost all 3 away games. If you said to most Celtic fans, you think we can win this league, they'd all said, most would have said no. Hope we might win the league, but could we win it? I don't think so. In fact, there's loads of fans wanting rid of Ange at that point in time. He's got no plan B. And what the big chap has done is raised all our expectations to the point that we all think we could win the league, and we're 3 points ahead. And he's timed it perfectly. You know, to win, you know, point ahead into the home straight, 14 games to go. We've increased that. And we've increased that because our main rivals are dropping points. And you need that to happen. Unless you have a kind of invincible season that we had, what was that, 16, 17, and the main rivals had last year, you need teams to drop points. Because if they don't drop the points they're dropping, we're behind. So fortunately, they've dropped points. We've been ever so consistent. You know, we've been a few hiccups along the way, but we've been dead consistent. We haven't lost a game since that Livingston game in the league, which is astonishing. So I think one of the things I liked about the other night was the substitutions. And I thought to myself, maybe this is the change we need. Because I think with only 9 games to go, to use a horse racing phrase, you need course and distance winners. And Beaton and Rogic and Forrest coming on. For me, I'd play them every game from now on in. Because I think Beaton allows Kalmack to move forward, and then we saw him Wednesday night, he scores his goal. We've missed his goals this season. We talk about we don't shoot enough. Well, he's somebody who did shoot when he was in that bit of the pitch. Beaton's a big, solid guy. For most of the games in the SPFL, Beaton's fine. You might have to rethink that in the Glasgow Derby, but that's leave that for another day. So Beaton's good. Rogic, I mean, a month ago people were touting Rogic as the best player of the season, and then he has a couple of poor games, and now he's a duffer. His legs are going. Rogic's the guy who will open doors. So I would play Rogic all the time. And Forrest, the amount of abuse Forrest got is ridiculous. Basically, the guy's only 30. He's had a hard season with injuries last season. He's not had many minutes this season. I thought he had a great game in Wednesday, and nothing against Abada, honest. He's just not a winger for me. He's made a fantastic contribution this season, Abada, the goals, the assists, brilliant. But a winger for me has to be able to beat players and get a good cross in, and Forrest does that. And if you get Forrest in one wing, playing the way we know he can play, and he'll also chip in with goals. And if you get Jota maybe up in his game a wee bit, and the big chap in the middle hopefully is fit, they're going to be throwing in loads of decent crosses. So I'd play Forrest, I'd play Beaton, McGregor, and Rogic moving forward. So I'm hoping that Big Ange, having done that the other night, might think, is this the way to go? Because we have got a lot of young players in that team, or players that are not used to this, this environment where, every misplaced pass and the fans are going bonkers. And I thought Taylor suffered for that on Wednesday night. Very rarely did Taylor come forward. It was all a lot of back passes, and I'd like to see Ralston back in the team. So I think the Ralston-Juranovic combo is much more effective than the Juranovic-Taylor or Ralston-Taylor. I looked at the stats this morning. I thought I'd better swat up for this stuff. And Anthony Ralston scored 5 goals and 7 assists this season. Juranovic has scored 4 goals, but all from the penalty spot. He's only had 1 assist. Mm-hmm. So the stats tell you, without touching on Alan Morrison here, the stats tell you that Ralston going forward is far more effective. And I think we're fine at the back. I think we can cope at the back. So we need more guys to go forward. And also Ralston's physicality. He's a threat in the box. Mm-hmm. Both ends. He scored vital goals. And also at this stage of the season, 9 games to go, you want heart, desire, guts. You want guys to run through brick walls. And I thought, as I say, a few players were maybe spooked a wee bit. Hatate, I think, has been spooked a wee bit. I think he doesn't realise how big this is. This is monstrous, maybe compared to what he's had before. So that was a bit of a ramble there. But that's kind of, I think the last couple of weeks, that's my views.
I was going to say, thanks very much, everybody, for watching. That's a Celtic
See you next week. Bye.
No, it's some really good points brought up there. The first one, Tony, I'll ask you about that Jim mentioned. I've seen a lot of discussion around about, and you don't want to verge on, I didn't care anyway kind of thing when you say this, and that isn't obviously what Jim was saying. But, there is discussion around Rangers getting the result they got against Dortmund means they stay in Europe. How will that affect our title race? Even though we wanted to stay in Europe against Bodo Glimt, will that positively affect our title race? What's your thoughts on that? Is it some people go down the road of winning is a habit, and so to be in every tournament you can be in is the best things. Other people think that there can be an overload of games. Like, what's your opinion on that?
I'll no lie, I wanted to do well in Europe. I wanted to get through, but we didn't, and we're out. Fine. I'm with Ange on this. Who cares what Rangers do? Celtic just need to keep winning. Bottom line. And I get back to what Jim said. Tom Rogic said the other week that they're used to being in this position because they were in it for 10 years. Tom Rogic, Callum McGregor were in it for 10 years. Guys like Beaton and Forrest, as Jim mentioned. The rest haven't been in it for 10 years. And that's the point that I think, larger point Jim was trying to make, that this is fairly new to these guys, and it is monstrous and it's huge. And I think guys like Beaton and Forrest will have a large part to play. And obviously Joe Hart's been in certain situations with Manchester City, so he can cope with big game experience, with the big game experience he's got. But this is new to the nucleus of this Celtic team, or most of those players that take the park every week. And it is going to come down to, can you handle it? Don't worry about the opposition, because you're now in a situation that you've manoeuvred yourself into, whereas if you keep winning, it doesn't matter what anyone else does. The rest's just noise. You blank out the noise and you focus on winning. I know it's hard to blank out the noise when there's 50,000, 60,000 fans getting in your case at home. But as Jim said there, we're now in a position where it's within touching distance. And if they do blow the title like they did in Neil Lennon's first season, it would be a monumental, crushing disappointment. Mm-hmm. But it has to be drilled into these guys that, this is what you're paid to do. This is why you're a footballer. You need to handle that pressure. And if they're taking the lead from the manager, he says these are the challenges that he loves. So good. I hope he's drilling that into the players. Whoever takes the field, that this isn't pressure. Embrace it, relish it. This is how you become legends, heroes of the club. and it is massive. Yeah, but you're going to have to handle it, and I thought they handled it well against St Mirren the other night, despite some negativity emanating from the stands. But that's what a footballer does. They blank that out. They trust the process, trust the manager, trust what they're doing. And Celtic did that the other night. And a lot of the games is now going to come down to good old-fashioned bottle, I guess you're talking about, really, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
They got the mental fortitude for it. And I think they have. You know, they've shown. But I agree, the more experienced players will play a prominent part because you need them. You need their influence. And certain guys are maybe falling by the wayside a wee bit. Hatate, possibly Maeda, but I'm allowing for them the fact that they played a full season in Japan and have been thrust into this kind of maelstrom, and it is maybe bigger than they anticipated. So that's fine, but then you leave those decisions up to the manager to see that as well, and you trust his judgment. But they've certainly got the squad to cope. You don't need to listen to anything else or affect yourself with anything else, because you are in control of your own destiny. And it's what every footballer wants as you enter the home straight in a league title race. You keep winning games, you can't be caught. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Well, it's as simple as that on paper, not as simple as that in reality. But, you know, it's a nice position to be in, having been told or your thoughts were that you weren't going to challenge. This was a rebuild. Remember, Celtic are still rebuilding. So I'd love to see it when it's finished. You know,
exactly.
Finished article, but they're doing all right. Thank you very much. And it ain't broke. So just keep doing what you're doing and winning football matches. And, you know, come May, then those champagne corks that Ange talked about earlier in the season might get popped one day.
Yeah, I think if we were at the refurbing a house section, we've got all the walls and the floors done. We're just waiting on the furniture coming in, but it's looking nice. Thanks everybody for commenting on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you're watching. A couple of comments I wanted to bring up. This one obviously first. Johnny Boy Soul says Laura, Tony and Jim, my favourite ACSOM lineup. Love that one. Not sure I agree, but
order.
I think he wrote it in the order, to be honest.
Alphabetical. No.
And another one, Tony, just to come back to you because it's a point that Jim raised. But Dayman says, Jim's correct, the home atmosphere turns borderline toxic. I don't know if you were that strong with it, Jim, but after 20 minutes, and it seems some players are shrinking and playing safer because of it.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
So
there's a lot of what you then find is that they play lots of safe passes. They don't want to take the risk.
Yeah.
And at this stage of the season, we don't want that. We want people. We want a front foot all the time. And I think the issue that what we saw, Hibs game certainly, is that we're playing safe passes all the time. And if you're playing safe passes all the time, it's slower, it's ponderous. You're not putting the opposition in the back foot. So maybe we should go a wee bit more direct and get in people's faces and stuff like that. And I wouldn't say it's toxic, but it certainly doesn't help. And what we're looking to do is help the players because, I would leave any negativity at all, leave it to the end of the season. If we don't win the league, fill your boots of how we blew the league. But for now, and like the stuff on Starfield does my head in. Basically, here's somebody who I've been a supporter of Starfield since the start. Could we get better for $4.5 million? Yes, I think we could have. But has he put a few bad games? Yes, he has had. But see, the last few games, I think he's been outstanding. Here's a guy who every game he has about 80 or 90 touches, and most of them are passes, and he's at the back. So every pass he has to make has to be 100% accurate, or else we're in trouble. And the last few games, I've kind of watched him where he's had the ball and nobody's moving for him. So he's holding on to the ball and he's walking for, and he's not the kind of guy who can move forward with the ball. So he's had to pick his time and he picks a pass to Jota or Abada, and that has been great. And the thing you have to think about, this occurred to me the other day, if you go back in Celtic's history, and I'm not comparing them with a Billy McNeil or an Aitken.
Careful, Jim, careful.
Or a Mark Reaper. But if you just say to these guys, you're going to play 70 passes during the game, how do you think they'd get on playing 70 passes? Because, football nowadays is all pass. 60s and 70s, it's lump the ball up the park as far as you can. So I think any player would find this a real challenge. And I saw a wee bit of an interview with one of Andrew's ex-players, talking about the stress that they had trying to put. And if you get 60,000 fans on your back going mental, and you're trying to play passes that if you make a bad pass, they could score a goal. That's pressure.
I think,
just get off his back, please, because we need him. He's going to be in the team. He's one of the certainties in that team. So we need to get behind him and encourage the guy. And as I said, if we blow the league at the end of the season, fill your boots at that point in time. But for now, let's just get behind everyone.
he found himself in a strange position the other night because St Mirren didn't want to play. Him and Carter Vickers were playmakers. They were like midfielders because they were advancing 60, 70 yards with the ball. And as you say, Jim, you've got a myriad of thoughts in your head because your next thing is, who do I give this to? And if there's no space, you're looking up and you're thinking, there's no space, what do you do? And then again, people think, oh, they're cumbersome or whatever. But the other night in particular, it was noticeable. But they did very well. I thought they coped really well with it. And where did the first goal come from? It came from Starfelt's head onto your man's boot. So
I think also
the right things at the right times, you know. Yeah. So I gave them credit for that because that would have been a game where they could have shirked responsibility and it could have became all too much because they were asked to do something which is not natural to their game. But I think they passed that test with flying colours. I
think also he looks quite an awkward kind of player and he looks uncomfortable, and that gets the fear when you're thinking he's going to fall over here. And I think it's a shame Big Ayer didn't stay for this season because he'd have been perfect, you know, to move forward with the ball, you know. And I think Starfelt's a far better defender than Ayer, even though he's shorter than him. But somebody like Ayer would have been good to, what do you call it, just break the lines, you know, and push on. For us, Starfelt and Carter Vickers, they need somebody to pass to. And there's quite a lot of time, particularly the Hibs game, there was no movement in front of them at all. So they're playing passes between each other and nobody's moving, and it slows down and it wastes more minutes. And all we've got to do is just high tempo, move the ball quickly, and we'll be fine. But it'd be good if, I mean, this started at the Hearts game. This guy's a dud, and then people have just piled on. And I think if you compare Starfelt's performances against most players, I think it kind of stands up pretty well. So let's go off his back.
Yeah, I think Starfelt is one of those players who, unfortunately, because he had a less than stellar start, has struggled to come out from underneath it, even though his performances suggest that he's a much better player than he was in the early days. So I think sometimes first impressions stick, unfortunately, when actually we should be reassessing it and looking at his recent performances, which have been absolutely brilliant. Paul Diet on YouTube just made me giggle, just talking about the hyperbole we see sometimes. My mate said to me, Forrest is done, he's 35. I had to Google it, he's only 29. So that's the situation you're sometimes dealing with, is we have to remember and look at the facts of the situation as much as anything else. Tony, another thing I was going to bring up to you that Jim had talked about there was, you know, we're in a situation where we are coming off the back of a bad season. We're coming off the back of, you know, perhaps one of the worst seasons, certainly the worst season I had seen since the Tony Mowbray days. Do you think perhaps that it's just a case of we've all got short memories, we're all a bit reactionary sometimes, and that actually, you know, if you told me a year ago would be in the heat of a title race, top of the table, and, you know, playing some of the football we've played this season, I'd have bitten your hand off for it? Yeah.
You look what Ange inherited in June. If you'd have projected forward to March, there is no way you would have said that Celtic would be in this situation at all. You worried, didn't you? You were worried about what the future held. So, I mean, I think, and that's the problem now, is, as Jim says, you have to be as positive as you can now. Part the negativity till the title is won or lost, basically. But you've now got yourself, as I say, manoeuvred yourself into a title-winning position. And it will break your heart if they blow it, you know. But you look at the rebuild that has happened, and you look at the job that Ange has done, and you say to yourself, it is pretty much nothing short of miraculous. You look at some of the players that have come in, that have entertained and have excited you. Some of the swashbuckling football in parts this season, you've really lapped it up and you've enjoyed it. So I think if you get the sum of the parts, that Celtic have well ahead of schedule probably than the manager thought they would be at this time. And to be in there, as Jim says, making a fist of it, making the most exciting title race in 10 years, then that's fine. But it's only great when you win it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's where the anxiety comes from, and the negativity, and you know, the misplaced passes and everybody going off their head. You know, so I think everybody just needs to kind of breathe on it a bit and just kind of look at it and say, do you know what? This is we would have took this big time at this stage of the season back in June. An unknown quantity of a manager, you know, with a squad that was at its lowest ebb, and arguably, when I say arguably in its history, you know, but we'd come off a season where it was meant to be oh so different, and it wasn't. So, and he's taken this mantle on and he's ran with it and he's done it himself. You know, no backroom staff or no trusted lieutenants. He's taken the staff that were there. So I think you've got to applaud the manager to even have gotten Celtic into this position, and now you just want to see them see the job through, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you trust them, you trust the players, you trust the manager, and as Jim said, even guys like Starfelt, the harshest critics, you'd have to sort of sit back and say, do you know what, you've done really well the last few games, and that augurs well for what's coming. And even whipping boy Greg Taylor at times, I thought Greg Taylor was fine the other night, you know. So, everybody will have different opinions about who comes in, what formations they play. That's what it's all about. But the bottom line is we just need everybody pushing together, manager, players, supporters, and get you over the line, because it would be arguably one of the sweetest and finest league title wins in the history of the club. And that's saying a lot.
That is saying a lot. Jim, Tony used the phrase there, getting over the line. Michael89 says at this stage of the season, teams are a lot more settled and can adopt playing against each other. So games at this season are more difficult. If we win scrappy till the end of the season, I'll be happy. Obviously, we're all in a situation where a win's a win and we have to take it. Do you think that's maybe been... I've seen a lot of people say that it's a drop-off in form or tiredness or whatever. Do you think there is an element of truth in that, you know, we were bringing something fresh at the beginning of the season, that's why we were blowing teams away, and that actually now they've maybe figured out Ange ball a little bit?
I think we're at the business end of the season and these teams are playing not to get relegated or to make the top six or to make Europe. So there's a lot more at stake. So maybe there's a lot more focus at this end of the season. I just think, I know it's a cliche, goals change games, but if we score in the first 20 minutes of a game, chances are we're going to win the game reasonably well. If it's 0-0 at half time, then the tension starts to set in and it becomes much more difficult. I must admit, every game this season, including the Hibs game, I felt we will score at some point. We will get the goal. We're totally on top. Need a wee break, need a wee bit of luck. And those goals have came in places like Ross County and the 1-0 game with Dundee United and even game against Dundee. The goals will come. So unfortunately, it didn't happen with Hibs. I think it's much easier to coach people to be defensive and to be negative. And I think you have to pay a compliment to a lot of the teams in the league, because I think people go down in the league at times, but organisationally, defensively, teams like Livingston and even Dundee, when they came, even though we scored 3 goals, they were well organised. So lots of teams are well organised and they're hard to break down. And that's why I think we need more ball players in the team. I think we need more offensive players in the team. I think we need more players who want to take a shot and have the mental strength to do that. So we need to encourage that. I just think in these games, if we can score early enough, then we could go on and win quite convincingly. And as we've said all along, it'll be tight margins this year. Goal difference will come into play. And you have to keep a wee eye on what's happened across the city, because at the game the other night, when you heard they'd scored after 3 minutes, you're thinking, well, maybe the goal difference might take a bit of a dent tonight, and it ends up 1-0, and you think, okay, well, they've won, but they haven't scored many goals. In fact, we went 1 goal ahead of them in this. So I think it's about what we do. It's all about what we do. We individually, collectively, better than all the other teams. You can make an argument whether we're better than our major rivals. That's a debate for another day. But we should be beating all these teams. And something I said at the very start, this is just dead exciting. Enjoy it for what it is. It's dead exciting, because we touched on Europe there. And I said last time I was on, I hate what the Champions League has become, but when we're in the Champions League, I love it. I mean, I'll take you back to Gordon Strachan's days. It was like a game of chess, watching a Champions League game, playing Man United at home, playing AC Milan at home. The concentration levels of the team were astonishing. The concentration levels of the fans was astonishing. They didn't get in the players back. They knew how big this was. Then you beat Man United and you beat AC Milan because everyone's pulling together. Love those nights because you don't know what's going to happen. But if you're playing Dundee at home, if you don't beat Dundee at home, there's something wrong somewhere. So it's not as exciting. And I'd much rather be in a title race. Obviously, you want to win the title, but I'd much rather be in a title race that you win in the last day of the season, or the football match we win in the last minute. Because that's exciting, and that's what football's meant to be. It's meant to be exciting. And there was a period there 5-6 years ago, we won the league by, however many points you want, 20, 25 points. And as a fan, yeah, it's great if you win the league. Was it exciting? No, it was boring, basically. Now we've got a rival, and it's a bit more difficult than that. So that makes it exciting. And excitement is good, notwithstanding why the rival's there, but it's exciting. And as I said at the start, let's just enjoy this season. Let's get behind the team because they are a really good team. And the point Jared made the other week about, well, what if every player starts to, play at their potential? We've all battered a few teams. And maybe this is the time. So I'm pretty confident about Sunday. Maybe this is the time that we've had some ups and downs this season. We start off kind of a bit of a down, then we have a wee up, and then it went down a wee bit. We've had a wee kind of down in terms of performances, if not results. Maybe this is the time to come back out of that. And as I said earlier, that I think having the experienced players there, I think if you get wingers on either side of the park who can beat players and create space and turn defences and don't put daft crosses into the box, cut the ball back. We've got good technicians. We've got Rogic coming out the ball, McGregor coming out the ball, Juranovic even. That's why I think if you play Juranovic on the left-hand side, he can cut in and have a dig. The fact that he's not scored a goal from open play is a bit strange because he's got a really good dig on him. So I just think if we're on the foot, we'll be fine. And it's not about what Livingston do, and it's not about what St Johnstone or Ross County do. It's about what we do. We play to our potential. We win those games. But the mental side of thing is now starting to come in a wee bit. And I think the initial kind of bounce of we're playing in front. I mean, the Hattati game in the Glasgow Derby was a point because he might be thinking, this is brilliant. 60,000 people, I'm scoring goals. What a laugh this is. And then a few games later, you think, hold on, this is serious. People are shouting at me, because I've kicked the ball at the park and they're going mental. I need to, maybe it's a bit bigger than what I'm used to. And maybe I'm tired because I've played the whole season in Japan. And maybe. Forrest hasn't had many games this season. He should be fresh. Get him in there. Beaton kind of in the same boat. It's time for him to stand up. So off at a tangent there, as I usually do, but it's about what we do. It's not about what other teams do, Laura.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think the point you raised about Dundee was a really good one and kind of goes back to Michael 89's point, which is, that Dundee team we played at the start of the season that we hit for 6, okay, we were flying that day, but they were absolutely atrocious. And even though we beat them again recently, they did seem more organised. And if that's a reflection of the league as a whole, you are going to struggle more against teams if they're a bit more organised and playing a bit better in general than they were at the start of the season.
I disagree with you, Laura. I don't want it to go to the last day of the season. I'll take one in the title with 3 games to go. Thank you very much. I know we're not going to win it before the split, but none of your last day heartbreak or last day joy stuff.
But how sweet is it when you win in the last day of the season? How sweet is it with the last minute goal?
I'm on board with the sentiment behind it, but no, stuff that. But I'm strapping myself in because I know it's going to the wire. But that's sweet. That's what I'm saying. But on last days, there's only one outcome. And if it doesn't go your way, you're crestfallen. So
for every brat back against St Johnstone, there's
the last day. I'll take that. You know what I mean? So,
that's when you put the call out for Harold. That's when you do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For every brat back against St Johnstone, there's a helicopter Sunday. So it's
there's Jan Venegoor as well. That's another.
The one that stands out in my mind, I don't actually know if it must have been the last day of the season, but away at Kilmarnock when when Nakamura scored that free kick?
Oh, there was tons of games left that season. Tons of games.
Tons of games, right? Okay. Well, that's just shows you how important I thought it was in my head, and it always makes me laugh because my brother was at Rugby Park that day, and his pal made him leave early because they had to go and beat the Rush, and he missed the goal. So
I think we went through a wee sticky spell. I think we dropped a few points before that, and it was like, if we drop more points today, it's not going to be as straightforward as we thought. And then bang, and that's it, one.
Well, there's been a few, hasn't there? Love Street 86, things like that, that people of a certain vintage will remember.
I think more in recent times, Canada's with Jan Vennegoor. Because the last number of years it's been relatively straightforward.
So it's last day ones are always, as Tim says, they're always exciting and nerve shredders, and they're sweet, but no good for the old ticker.
But that's why you go to football. Sure.
Well, I know that's why you go to football, but I think if you're giving Celtic supporters a chance of winning the title before the last day of the season, this season in particular, they'd snap your hand off.
I think they would take it before Christmas, of course.
I was going to say, guys, let's not argue over when we win the title. Let's just hope we win it.
Oh no, there's always I caveat that with hope, and say that it has to go the right way.
Whichever way it goes, it's still exciting. So
Yes, true. Before we get on to talk about the voodoo club that is Livingston, the bogey team that has become Livingston, just wanted to shake things up a little bit because as I do on a Friday morning, as has become routine, I like to scroll through Celtic media sites and general media, seeing anything that covers Celtic. And an interesting thing came up here. It was John McGinley over at 67 Hail Hail, and for anybody who doesn't read their content, really highly recommend it. They're always on the ball with stuff as well, as are the Celtic Way, obviously, Tony, not discounting. But he published an article, I think the scoop might have been from somewhere else, but he certainly published the article on it, saying that, it was Stephen McGowan that got the original story on it, but apparently there has been an upload to LinkedIn from Hawkeye Innovations looking for a consultant or a VAR officer for Scotland from next season. So obviously the vote isn't until the spring, but the plans are already being put in place, assuming that vote goes ahead. Now, this might be the company just preparing themselves and getting their due diligence in place if the vote goes their way. We'll wait and see. But Tony, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to say, VAR, for better or for worse in Scottish football, what's your opinion?
I thought you were going to ask Tony to apply for that job. Does it have a person specification on it?
Well, then you change the narrative, penalty to Celtic. Is that what you're saying?
That's what we're going for.
Well,
I think anything that improves refereeing decision, or if the technology's there, we can afford it, it's feasible, then it has to be exploited and used. But how many times have we come onto these shows and pods and spoken about refereeing decisions? Because we watch Celtic, we've been speaking at it from a refereeing perspective with decisions involved in Celtic, but we've also catalogued other teams' decisions as well with referees. So it's something that, if it's there, we have to exploit it, we have to use it, and we have to take a lot of the dubiety out of these decisions. And I know, and I get it, it's an emotional game, and part of the excitement, as Jim would say, is that you see it in real time once and that's it, you call it as you see it. But we now have we can see an incident from various angles now, and I think Scottish football has to kind of drag themselves into that technology age and use it. And I think it will be for the betterment of the game. See, if it takes 2 or 3 minutes to get to the right decision, so be it. That's what you want. You want the right decision. You want consistency. And I think it will aid referees in getting the decisions consistent and getting them right. Because I've said many times on this pod that every football club supporter has a dossier and a catalogue of refereeing decisions that have gone against them. So what does that say? It says to me that the referees are hopeless and they're making mistakes week in, week out. So you want to improve their performance. So if you get a tool there that helps improve their performance, then we have to use it. We have to go down that route and get VAR introduced in Scotland. I'm certainly all for it.
It's an interesting topic of discussion, Jim. I think because, like Tony says, it's not foolproof. It wouldn't get rid of absolutely every contentious decision. It might reduce them significantly. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Jim, on, you've talked a lot about the emotion of a last-minute goal or the emotion of the game. Does VAR take away from that for you, or is it still worth having in spite of any effect it might have on that? I
would turn your question on its head and say, why wouldn't you want VAR? What are the reasons for not wanting it? I think people would come up with very few. I think you want to get it right. That's the main thing. If somebody's offside, somebody's offside. I think how you apply it is the most important thing. And I think fans have to understand how it's been applied. It has to be very transparent. And there was an incident at the Dortmund game at Ibrox where I think Kent scored a perfectly good goal, but it was chalked off under VAR. But then you saw the angle he looked at it, and from the angle he looked at it, it did look like a foul. But then on BT, they showed a different angle, and it was quite clear it wasn't a foul. So why they didn't use that other angle, I don't know. So if you're going to use VAR, then it has to be able to use all the different kind of angles. And I've always thought, decades ago, I kind of felt as if there should be some sort of challenges to decisions, similar to tennis. So you get 3 challenges in a game, basically, and if your challenge is upheld, then you don't lose your challenge, type of thing. And just based on STV cameras or BBC cameras or something. But obviously, we do have the technology now. So why wouldn't you use that technology? Why wouldn't you want VAR? It should clear up 80%, 90% of the things. And as long as you do it relatively quickly, as a fan hanging about, and we haven't had much experience of that. I'm trying to think. Was there a goal a couple of years ago in the Europa League at Celtic Park? It was given, and I'm from my age here, I can't remember. But that delay, obviously I've seen games on TV where it's been delayed. And the main thing is to get the right decision. But if it's taken them like 4 or 5 minutes, then I suppose, that is the one negative of having. But as long as they get it right, and it's that understanding that if somebody's like a millimetre in front of somebody, is that offside? Well, it is. So how do you? So I think having the transparency there, because what we don't want is VAR coming in and decisions from VAR. We're all thinking, how did they come to that decision? And how much you're actually going to see in terms of that. So will VAR be at? I was going to say Dens Park. They might be down next season, but will VAR be fully operational at Dens Park, and then fans of other clubs will be able to see that decision that was made at Dens Park? I don't know. Or is it made and nobody sees the actual? It's just that VAR says it's, whatever. So the transparency bit, I think, is really important. How they came to that decision, and I suppose who the people are who are making their decisions. Are they qualified to do that? That's why Tony's applying for that job you just mentioned there. Because I think that's important as well. Because if we've totally incompetent referees sitting in the VAR studio making ridiculous decisions, then we'll just have the same thing. So one would hope that maybe we're going out with Scotland, because I suppose it doesn't actually have to be in Scotland. If the pictures have been transmitted into some place in London and someone's looking at it, they don't have to actually physically be in the country. So you could have, English referees or Welsh referees or something like that. So it's a good thing. I don't see why it wouldn't be a good thing, and it should clear up 90% of the stuff. There will be that 10% you think, not really sure about that. But if it gets 90% right, you can't argue with that.
Tony, I think by implication, Jim might be calling you an incompetent referee there.
It's a lovely man.
By implication, I thought Jim was saying I was qualified to do something. That's wrong. I'm not qualified to do anything. You know what I mean? It's a trial getting up in the morning, as you can see.
I'm still a fan.
But if Jim's a fan, that as I say, the feeling's mutual. So it's okay.
Love you, Tony.
We'll spend the last 15 minutes trying to break the hoodoo over the spaghetti head, I think, Tony. And our very own Lawrence Connolly starts it off in his inimitable style by saying, make grass parks mandatory before VAR. I can see that on a placard somewhere. What do you see being the issues we get there? We all know about the plastic pitch, but there's plenty of them about. Every team has to play on them, and I think, although I would prefer them not to be in place, that's what we're dealing with. How do we break this voodoo against Livingston that we seem to have come across over the last few years?
Well, I'm like Jim. I share Jim's optimism. I think Celtic will win on Sunday. And I think they'll win 2-0. I think Giacomakis will score. I think
bold.
Yes, bold. There's 3 bold statements. There you go. But I think Jim said earlier, I think the one big thing is, I believe he thinks that Ange will have learned lessons from that 1-0 game. That is the last game we lost, league game, back in August. And I know we hate the surface and the players don't like it, and the stats can be skewed because we never played them for years. So I think in the last, was it 6 games, we've drawn 2, lost 2. That was either drawn 3 and lost 3, something like that, or lost 2 and drawn 4. It doesn't make great reading, but I think this is the time. See if you want to win titles, these are the games that you have to win. Champions are let go there and they find a way to win. And I think that's what Ange will be stressing to the players on Sunday. You find a way to win. And the way Celtic have been playing, Hibs game apart, where there was a kind of, I don't know, I just felt there was a spark missing, that's fair enough. But I thought the other night we were well in control, and I think it's going to be another similar game. We'll be well in control, but we need to break them down. And we know how they're going to play, and they kind of know how we're going to play, because Ange will not change it. So we have to just go there. Any chance at all we have to take, but we have to be better than we were in August, when, quite frankly, we were rank rotten. Don't even think we created an opportunity. So even that in itself, by creating some goal-scoring opportunities, you'll have already outdone what you did in August. So I'm like Jim, I'm pretty confident. I think they can go there and win. And I think they're getting a wee kind of confidence surge. And I just think they're driving themselves towards the flag. And I think if that can't motivate you for Sunday and putting or righting the wrong of earlier this season, then nothing will. Just go out there and get your head focused. Never mind the surface and never mind the way they're going to play. Jim and I have both said it in this pod. It's all about how Celtic play. It's all about how Celtic cope, how the players can cope with being in this situation where you just need to win. And yeah, Rangers have got the advantage of playing before us. I don't think I would believe Ange this time if he said, I don't know how they got on a full 24 hours before Celtic played, because somebody would no doubt tell him. But yeah, you just got on with your own business this weekend and for the next 8 weekends to come. But Livingston, I think, will be pivotal in this run-in. And I think if Celtic can go there and win, then that would be a wee statement of intent, because it would be, one, an overdue win, a welcome win, but it would say something about the mental fortitude of the players as well.
I think it absolutely would. At Celtic Follower on YouTube says we need to be composed and patient against Livy. Jim, we've talked about the pressure that the players can feel at Celtic Park sometimes. Do you think we'll be afforded the ability to be a bit more patient at Tony Macaroni and try and take our time to break them down, or do we need to be going out of the traps fast against them?
We can't be composed and patient. That's the point I'm making. Composed and patience is no good. We need to go for them from the minute one. They'll be hard nut to crack. They're a formed team at the moment. They've got some good results. They're very stuffy. You see all the stuff about plastic pitches. I'm pretty sure Ange will come out and say something like, "Who cares, mate? It's a pitch. Don't make." The big chap, what he's really good at, he never makes excuses for anything. Some of the most ridiculous decisions, he just go on with it, mate. So I don't think the plastic pitch is an issue. I just think we have to play at a higher tempo, and we'll be fine. None of those Livingston players would go on the Celtic bench. Basically. Yeah. So we get better players. And if we're better, they've got very good organisation. I think the manager has done wonders with them. And given the budget they must have, probably the lowest in the league, they're punching way above their weight because they're well organised. They've got good defenders and they make it difficult to get space. That's where you need Tom Rogic, I think, in the team. But if we are composed and patient and keep knocking the ball from side to side and back and forward, it'll be like Hibs again. basically. And that's why we have to go out with, I think, a Forrest and a Jota in either flank, going at them and turning them, and Callum McGregor and getting shots and then testing the keeper. We need to test the keeper. Because even if they're just speculative shots, we saw with the big chap's second goal against Dundee, where Maeda just fires the ball across to keep a spills at bang goal. So we need more than that. We need far more than that, because we are too passive. We are too patient. Too many. I thought Wednesday night it was too many passes at times as well. We're trying to score the perfect goal at times. We need to put teams under pressure, put them on the back foot, get them thinking. And if you are really patient and you are really composed, it gives them more time to organise themselves. And I thought, we did play well the other night, but St Mirren, as the manager said, they look quite composed. They weren't getting flustered. If you want to chuck high balls in, do it all night, fill your boots. Because we've got big centre half, you don't have big centre forwards. We'll take care of that. So that wasn't working. So I think we go at them on Sunday. We've got better players. That's no guarantee you're going to win the game. But I don't think we can be composed and patient, because that's not where we are just now. Let's go out and win this league. Every single game. Let's go out and score in the first 20 minutes. If we score in the first 20 minutes, at some point they have to come out. And that suits us as well, if they come out. And it's just the fact that, as I said, I think we are too composed, we are too patient at times. And that takes up a lot of time. And even though we're used to Ange's way of football, I'd have said in the first half a dozen games at Celtic Park this season, the fans were screaming at them, get the ball forward quickly. But now I think the fans are more knowledgeable. This is how we play. Get used to it. But there's times that we're knocking the ball back and front, and the minutes are ticking down.
Yeah.
Even if it's just the first 10 minutes of the game, if you're the other team, you're thinking, well, that's fine, we'll let them do that. We'll just sit back with this low block, as they call it. We'll mark the space and make it difficult. Whereas our main rivals don't do that. They're on the front foot all the time. They're playing balls over the top. They're a lot more high intensity. They haven't been more successful by doing that. But kind of watching their games, they certainly put the opposition on the back foot much more than we do. I think at times we make it a bit easier for the opposition to defend. So no composure, no patience from me. Aggressive, in your faces, loads of shots. Get the early goal, take it from there, and hopefully score a few more goals. That's what I'm hoping for.
I felt that was a performance against Hibs, Jim. There was calmness and composure till they ran out of time. Yeah. Just as you say, there was a lack of urgency, a lack of spark, to be honest. So I think that if anything, they'll have learned from that they do have to force the issue at various times. Preferably in the first 20 minutes so they can get ahead. If not, then at some point where they did after 10 minutes after the restart against St Mirren, and they got that goal, and then chances kind of flown after that, So,
Tony, I think one that springs to mind specifically for me was that away game at Pittodrie against Aberdeen. It seemed as though we needed to be scored against to up our urgency. I remember we conceded the equaliser, and then Jota goes right up the other end of the park and scores again. I wonder if just a mix of tiredness, a mix of a long season, a mix of intense training and all that kind of thing means that the physical tiredness is getting into the mind, and actually we're only being woken up when we're actually put under pressure and forced to actually make a move.
Well, the great thing about that, when they have had a jolt to their senses, they've reacted. They've reacted every time, certainly domestically. They went behind in the League Cup final, and less than a minute later they were level. So they have that in them. That's when they do, as Jim says, show urgency, and they up it, because it becomes a necessity then. So there are times when you think that they do play composed, tippy-tappy football and kind of go nowhere. But when they are on the front foot and they're pressing teams and they've got the pedal to the metal, teams find it hard to cope with that. So, and I get that it's been a long season and maybe some players are fatigued and tired and all that, but we now can use 5 substitutes. Surely that's a benefit to a club like Celtic. Mm-hmm. Players that can impact the game as much as Rogic did the other night. Forrest did as well when he came on. Looked quite fresh, looked as if he wanted to beat the man all the time. So you've got to box clever now with 8 games to go. Well, 9 games, whatever it is. And use those substitutes wisely as well. if you need to up the tempo or force the issue. So, I still believe that this squad of players and set of players are capable of winning the title by doing the things that they've been taught to do this season and coped so well. They have coped in adverse situations domestically, certainly. Europe's maybe different, but certainly domestically they've never been found wanting. They're 28 games domestically unbeaten. That's some run. That's in all competitions. So that's pretty good going. So Sunday presents its own challenge. We all know about the pitch and the temporary hoodoo, stuff like that. But what better way to just sort of say, do you know what? We've got the bit between the teeth here. We're homing in this title by going to the Spaghetti Head and winning convincingly if you can. If not, just win. Just find a way to win.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what it all comes back to. Jim, you talked about what you would like to see up front in terms of Jota, Forrest, and perhaps I think you said Giakoumakis, but what about the rest of the team? Does that pretty much pick itself for you, or are there any other changes you would like to see in the lineup on Sunday?
I think before I answering that question, I think what we've had is players have stepped up to the mark when we've needed them. We've had Kyogo at the start of the first part of the season. When he's out of the team, Abada stepped up a few times, scored vital goals. Jota, as you said, against Aberdeen, and then the big chap against Dundee the other week. Nobody stepped up against Hibs in that position. Maeda didn't get much service, but we're looking for somebody to be that guy that steps up. And if Giakoumakis is injured for Sunday, then I think that's a dilemma, whether you go with Maeda or Abada through the middle, or even Ajeti coming back in, the forgotten man there. For me, I think, as I alluded to earlier, I think the team picks itself for the rest of the season. So I would, Hart and Carter Vickers and Starfield obviously pick themselves. But I'd go with Alston and Juranovic as the fullbacks. I'd play Beaton as the anchor with McGregor and Rogic further forward, shooting on sight. Forrest and Jota, two genuine wingers who can beat people and create space. And that's what you have to do against tight defences. You take a man out and all of a sudden the space opens up. And whoever's fit plays centre forward. If Big Giakoumakis is fit, then he gets the nod. If it's not him, I toss a coin between Maeda and Abada to play through the middle. Because the one thing Abada's got is an eye for goal. He gets himself into good positions. And he's contributed, fantastically this season. So that's how I see the team for Sunday and the team from now on. And, we have got good options from the bench. So if Big Tam isn't doing it, then O'Reilly is an obvious substitution for him. Even a James McCarthy from Beaton could be some sort of option. I just think we need more attack-minded players in the team. I think Callum McGregor, although he's been brilliant this year, is that kind of quarterback link guy. We've missed his goals. I was trying to think when the last time he scored a goal. Was it Michelin? Was that the last time he got a goal?
Before
the other night? In any other season, he's chipping in with at least 7-8 goals a season, and he's shooting from distance, and that's what we need. He's a more accurate Ryan Christie. That's what we need. So that's who I'd go with. For Sunday.
It's an interesting point. I think I agreed with most of what you said until James McCarthy came up, but we'll leave that one there.
Similar player to Beaton. I think if you're looking for experienced players to help us get us over the line, as Tony said earlier, then Beaton and McCarthy, I think, are kind of similar players. And all we're saying is that maybe if you start with Beaton and he's not doing it for any reason, then McCarthy seems like a kind of, the kind of obvious replacement for him. But we've got options from the bench, and I agree with Tony, we've got 5 subs. And that was the weird thing about the Hibs game.
Yeah,
one sub. Couldn't
Yeah.
get that. And then I would turn that question and said, well, why not another 4 subs? What was the reason for that? Because was Forrest carrying a niggling injury? Or it needed substitutions, but Ange didn't do it. And you know what? Again, I'm not trying to criticise Ange because, as I've said before, Ange will have forgotten more than I know about football. But you're just thinking, I don't know if you asked that question, Tony. I know you get a bit of a kicking for saying no spark, but no, only put on 1 sub where we were crying out for something different.
We needed a goal. So surely one of your subs could have provided the spark to get the goal.
And even if it's somebody like Ralston, because Ralston was going to give you that heart and that energy and that, even as I said before, it's set pieces because, he's pretty good in the air. So I just didn't understand that. Yeah.
His delivery's good from wide areas.
Oh, he's brilliant, yeah.
So brilliant. It's better than Taylor's, arguably so.
Yes, much
so.
so.
you had the chance to bring him on, and the ball might fall for a Maeda, even though he kept Maeda on. And that's what you're hoping. Even if a guy bombing down the wing and putting in crosses, just to do something, and the ball falls for you, then you get a goal from that.
And that's the thing about keeping an eye on what the other guys are doing, what your rivals are doing, because the result at Ibrox kind of got Andrew out of jail a wee bit.
Yeah.
Because the criticism would have been much, much more to say, what have you done? We've blown a chance here. Whereas out of jail a wee bit. So
it would have been ferocious.
It would have been ferocious. From you especially. It would have been
if Motherwell hadn't taken a point on Sunday. So, and that's it. That, again, we've been speaking about it all season. That's the fine margins you're talking about, isn't it?
And notwithstanding, I mean, as I said earlier, we've been incredibly consistent, but we needed the main rivals to drop points to get us into this position. Yeah. And now we're in this position, as I said at the very start, the expectations are now sky high. We should be winning this league with the squad that we've got. We've got a 3-point lead. The goal difference is half decent as well. I think we're the bookies' favourites, are we? I think I'd read somewhere that
I believe we are now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're in that position. So if we don't win the league from that position, then the big man may get a kicking. But that's for the end of the season. That's not for now. He's done a remarkable job. Long may it continue.
Long may it continue indeed, and hopefully the first step to continuing is on Sunday. Of course, on ACSOM, as we have done for every game this season, we will be live pre-match, half an hour before the match for the pre-match build-up, then at half-time and then at full-time. Not sure who's going to be in the lineup. Jim, I might have to go against your advice and join the team for the lineup on Sunday, because...
never go on those things, no. leave that to Paul John Dykes. That's his thing.
Yeah, depending on the result, my reaction is sometimes too much swayed by the result in these situations. But if you want an entertaining watch, regardless, then make sure and tune in. Tony, thanks very much for joining me today. Always a pleasure. Jim, it's been a while, but it was a pleasure to be back on with you today. And we will see you again next week.